Welcome to another crochet tutorial with Cozy Rosie UK. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make these crocheted Scrabble style pieces. I'm going to add these into my Mother's Day frame, which I will link below so you can see exactly what the finished item looks like. I'm also going to link below the blog post so that you can see the written pattern and instructions for all the different letters too. Now before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and of course hit the notification bell so that you never miss out on another crochet tutorial again. Now the materials that we're going to be needing is a 3.5mm crochet hook. I've just got my soft grip here. You're going to need a darning needle and some scissors. There are a few ends to deal with this pattern. And I'm going to be using a cotton blend, which is a Sirdar Snuggly Replay, which is a 50% acrylic, I think, and a 50% cotton. This is super soft and the shade is Ice Cream Dream. It's the closest kind of creamy colour I could find to a Scrabble piece. And then I just got some black cotton, which is 100% cotton from Ricorumi, which I think this is the shade number is 060, but it's just a black cotton, so it doesn't matter which style you use. These are both a DK weight or a size 3 cotton. So gather those materials together and let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to do with our cream colour, we're going to make the actual Scrabble piece. So we start by just placing a slip knot onto our hook. So I'm using my 3.5mm crochet hook and I'm just going to place my slip knot onto there. I've done that wrong. So the first thing I'm going to do is to make a slip knot and place that onto my crochet hook. And then we're going to do a chain of 13. So we just yarn over and bring the hook through the loop on our crochet hook to create our chain. So that's number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and that's everything we need for our chain. So working back for row 1, we're going to start by working into the second chain from hook. So remembering this one doesn't count, that's number 1, there's number 2. We're just going to insert our hook and place a double crochet in UK terms, a single crochet in US terms, into each of the chains across. So very simply insert the hook, yarn over, bring a loop up, yarn over, pull through both loops on your hook. So by the end of row 1, you should have a total of, of 12 double crochets or 12 stitches all the way down. So we're going to work 1 double crochet or 1 single crochet into each chain along. So keep working those stitches in and I'll meet you at the end. Okay, so I've done my 12 stitches for my first row, which is row 1. Going into row 2, we're going to start by chaining 1. We're going to turn our work and work back along. We're going to literally place a double crochet in UK, single crochet in US into each stitch across. Now the chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so we're going to work into that first stitch underneath the chain as well. So by the end of row 2, you should have a total, again, of 12 stitches. So at the end of row 2, you should still have a stitch count of 12. Now we're going to repeat this process of chaining 1 and placing one double crochet or one single crochet into each stitch across for a total of 6 rows. So we've just completed row 2, so we're going to place 4 more rows of this stitch, one into each stitch across, and that will form the base of our Scrabble piece. So keep on working through and I'll meet you back at the end of row 6. What I would say is at the end of row 6, do not detach your yarn. Leave your Scrabble piece attached to your ball, because once we've surface crocheted the letter on, we're going to use the main yarn or the cream coloured yarn to join the sides of all the square together. So keep on working across, do your 6 rows in total, so a further 4 rows of single crochet or double crochet in UK terms, and I'll meet you back at the end of row 6. So I have reached the end of row 6, so you can see the pairs of rows there. So this is the end of row 6, and I've done a little chain 1 just to secure that stitch, and you can either pop a little stitch marker in so you haven't got a big tail hanging round. I'm just going to place one through that loop there. So through the loop I've just pulled up when I've removed my hook. I'm just going to pull on my working yarn just to hold that in place. So I can move this yarn all the way over there because now we need the black yarn, and the first letter that we're going to make is the letter M. So with our Scrabble piece, it doesn't look like a Scrabble piece at the moment, we are simply going to fold it over to make it a bit more square, but before we do that we're going to surface crochet on the letter M. So you're going to need your contrasting colour. If you're doing it very much the same like a Scrabble piece, black is the ideal colour for that. And it's a little bit different of how we do surface crochet. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a slip knot, but we're not going to put it on our crochet hook yet. Make the slip knot and leave that there. We are going to start by inserting our hook where we want the surface crochet to start. So I've got my original tail yarn, there's my slip stitch from when I first started, and I'm just going into that space next to the space, if that makes sense. So push your hook all the way through the back into the stitch next to your tail. Then we can pop our, it's hard to do on camera, it's like doing it in a mirror. We can pop our slip knot on. I'm just going to tighten that by pulling on the working yarn. And I'm going to hold the tail with my thumb against the project and just bring my hook back through. So that starts the surface crochet. Now obviously we want to try and keep the knot from the slip knot underneath the project, because this bit's going to be the back and this is the front. So keep your tail kind of held with your other hand if you can. And we're simply going to insert the hook into the next stitch up in the row. Yarn over, bring it up, and you simply slip stitch into the loop on your hook. We're then going to do the same, working our way up over the first 5 stitches. So that was number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and then number 5. There we are. And there we have the first part of our letter M. So the next thing we're going to do is to come down. So we're going to work in first into that stitch there. So grab your working yarn with your black, and we're going to insert our hook 1 row down and 1 to the inside of that. So it's going to be that one. You can turn your work over if you need to find that yarn to bring it through. And then we just slip stitch through the loop on our hook. And then we're going to go into this stitch here, so another row in. You can turn your work if you want. This is why these tails get up. You don't want to work over that tail. If it's getting in the way, just drop and kind of re-pick up the black yarn. Bring that through and do that slip stitch. You can see we've got the next part. This is good so far. We're going to work our way back up. It's a bit fiddly when you're turning your work so often. And we're looking to keep these in line. So the next one is going to be there. My neighbour, even though it is just February, is now mowing his lawn, which is good timing. If you look at the rear of you can see exactly where you've placed those stitches, and they should be in the same rows. So looking at the back here, I'm aiming quite high up from this stitch, so we can follow it all the way along and insert the hook and slip stitch there. And I'm just going to double check that's the same height. You see, it's not. And if it's wrong, that's fine. You just simply take out and reinsert your hook into that loop. And it must be the one above, just there. So I'm just going to slip stitch through that one. And I can check again on the back. There we are, that's the right height. So the last part to do now is to work back down this row, creating the last side of the letter M. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and of course number 5, because an M should look the same on both sides. Before I cut my yarn, I am of course just going to double check the rear of it to make sure it looks like all the same stitches. I'm happy with it from the front. And if you're happy, you simply just snip your working yarn for your black strand there. There we go. And just pull that through. You can either use your hook or thread it through a needle, but you're just simply going to bring the tail through the other side of your project, and then we are ready to sew that one up. There we are. You're just literally going to fold that over, and there is our little letter M. So now we've got lots of lovely tails. We do love those, don't we? I'm going to just pull this stitch marker up so I can reattach the main colour to my crochet hook. Just like that. There we are. And then bring the two edges together. We'll tuck those ends down there for now so they're not in the way. And we're just going to slip stitch all the way around the edge of our project, so it kind of secures it and makes it a really nice edge. So we're going to insert our hook through the first corner. We've already done our chain 1 when we secured that corner. Oh, I made that a bit of a mess. There we go. Keep those tails out of the way for a moment. So go into the first corner, and I'm going to go where that chain 1 is, just underneath that, on that side there. And then we're just going to yarn over and slip stitch. She sets through these two corners. There we go. Fabulous. We're going to make sure that we're going to work through both sides of our project at the same time, just by pushing through at the ends of each of the rows, pulling through and slip stitching. Now these black tails are secure because they were secured with a slip stitch and a slip knot. So I'm just going to snip them a little bit shorter. This is my cheats way. I'm just going to tuck them inside. No one's going to see them. And then with the tail yarn from the original slip knot, you can do exactly the same. I haven't left the black tails too long because I don't want those to show through. And it works as a little bit of a padding for the square as well. Tuck those into the middle. And then we can continue to slip stitch down across the next side. The good thing is by doing it in the round almost in this way, even though we don't have a secure edge here, we can create one by going through the top row of the fold, which kind of just gives the project a really nice even finish as well. Trying to force my hook into the wrong space there. There we go. So we just got to join this final side here. Again, just make sure all those ends are tucked in. And then we're just going to join these last two sides together. There we are. This is the last one because we're back to where we started. There we go. Just going to do a little chain one to secure that into a little knot. And then you can just snip that strand there. You have a letter W as well if you need it. And then we can just literally place this tail onto our darning needle. And we are just going to securely put it through the stitch, making sure that it's going all the way through, back out the other side. Gently pull that through. And then you can simply just snip that off. And your letter M is done. If you are doing the word mum, you will need a couple of these. So make 2 M's. Would have been Blue Peter Days. Here's one I made earlier. Now obviously this is not still attached to the ball, but it's just so that I can show you how to do the other letter. So we'll start with the letter U. So we're going to start by making our slip knot ready to attach to our Scrabble piece. Just leave that there ready. And we're going to insert our hook into the 6th stitch up from where our tail is, which will be that side. So we've got our, imagining that's still attached to our ball. We've got our original start there. So we're counting up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we're going to insert our hook into that 6th stitch up. Attach, just like we did before, we're going to attach our black slip knot to our yarn. And we are going to work down this side of the project. I'm just going to move that tail out of the way. Try and find my working yarn out of all of these ends. And somehow try and hold that in position as well. There we go. So just bring your hook back through. And we're going to work into that next stitch down towards the bottom of where your slip knot is from the start of your project. There we go. Just going to pull that tail there to make sure that doesn't come through. There we go. So now that that one's done, we can work down. We're only going to do the first 3 stitches because then we're going to create the curve of our letter U. So there's 3. We're then going to go in 1 stitch, but by missing that bottom one there. So we go into the stitch 1 in and 1 row down. And go across 2 stitches. That's 1 and 2. and then we work back up the other side. So we don't go into that one, we go into one row up and one row in. One, there we go. And back up to the same height as where we started. Oops. Same height as where we started the letter U. Goodness me, tails everywhere. Sorry about this. Makes it more fiddly than it needs to be. There we go. Remember, you can look at the back to make sure that you're making your stitches or your letters nice and even. Me. There we go. So that is one stitch higher, I think. Is it? Yeah. Goodness. There we go. So I have indeed gone one stitch too many. So I'm just going to pull that last one out. Yeah, that looks right. And that's the joy of being able to see it on the back of the project as well. No, it did need to be one higher, I think. You can always double check yourselves by looking at the back of the project. There we go. So once that's pulled through, it'll all look normal. So you would complete this in the same way as you would for your letter M. You simply snip off the black yarn, pull through, so do a slip stitch all the way around the project, and that's your letter U completed. I'm just going to pull this out and we can do the letter O, which is very similar to the letter U. You may already have figured this one out. So instead of going into number into number 6, we're going to start this time into stitch number 5. So one below where the U started. Get my slip knot ready, sorry. There we go. So as always, just bring through your yarn. It's ready to start. So we're going to work down the side just as it's exactly the same as the letter U, except we start one stitch down to allow us to make the curve. There we go, the curve of the letter O. So you do 3 stitches, 3 slip stitches down. That's number 2, number 3. We go across one in the exact same way we did for the letter U, and then across the next 2 rows. What's my yarn split? Across those next 2 rows, and then we go up into that next stitch there. Just move it to where you need it to be to make it easier for you to work on. Keep those tails out of the way where you need to. Now we're going to go up and match it on the other side. Remember, you can look at the other side there. So one more. There we go. And we're going to curve up and around across those 3 rows. Before finally joining it up again. Working down and back into that same stitch again this time to complete the whole circle. So I'm going to fasten this one off so you can see. I would then kind of pull that through the bottom there. And there we have our letter O. Again, like all the others, you would just fold over in half and do a slip stitch all the way around the edges so that you have whichever letter you need. So I'm going to get all of these finished up and add them into my little frame, ready to display and gift to my mother on Mother's Day. Thank you so much for joining me today for this crochet tutorial. I hope you've really enjoyed it, and that I'm really excited to see what letters you're going to be surface crocheting, because every single letter in the alphabet can be done, just a case of how you're going to do them. So go and have some fun, get playing with all these wonderful little slip stitches and this surface crochet. I'd love to know if you've ever used surface crochet before and why you enjoy doing it. So come and find me over in the community group. You'll find a link in the description box below for you, and I will catch up with you soon.